Have you ever looked at your life and thought, I'm tired, I'm stuck, I want more? Maybe you've said those words this week. Maybe you've said them today. You wake up exhausted. You look at your situation. You compare your life to someone else's. And suddenly, everything you have starts to feel small. Your blessings become ordinary. Your opportunities become invisible. Your life becomes something you tolerate instead of something you appreciate. But what if I told you, you are currently living in an answer to a prayer that someone else is desperately praying right now? Think about that. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is fighting for one more day. Someone is praying for a job. Someone is praying for a healthy body. Someone is praying for a family. Someone is praying for peace. Someone is praying for a chance. And yet the very things they're begging God for are the very things you started taking for granted. Today, I want to challenge the way you see your life. Because gratitude doesn't disappear because God stopped blessing us. Gratitude disappears because comparison hides reality. And when comparison becomes your focus, you become blind to your blessings. Stay with me until the end, because by the end of this message, you may never look at your life the same way again. Let's start with a difficult truth. Many people spend their lives focusing on what they lack instead of what they have. It's human nature. We notice the closed door. We ignore the doors that are already open. We notice the one thing we don't possess. We ignore the hundreds of things we've already received. We focus on the promotion we didn't get, the relationship we lost, the opportunity we missed, the dream that hasn't happened yet. And while we're staring at what's missing, we completely overlook what's present. The enemy doesn't always need to destroy your blessings. Sometimes he only needs to convince you that they're not enough. Because the moment you believe what you have isn't enough, you stop appreciating it. And the moment you stop appreciating it, you begin living as though you're poor while standing in abundance. Think about your health. How often do people wake up, breathe normally, walk normally, see normally, and never thank God for it? Most people don't realize the value of health until it's gone. But somewhere today, someone is sitting in a hospital room praying for the strength you used to complain about. Someone would give anything to have the energy you have this morning. Someone would give anything to hear the words, "Everything looks normal." Yet many of us receive blessings every day without ever recognizing them, because we've become familiar with them. And familiarity often kills gratitude. Let's talk about another blessing many people overlook. Time. Every morning you wake up, God gives you something that billionaires cannot buy. A new day, 24 fresh hours, another opportunity, another chance, another sunrise. But how often do we treat it casually? How often do we waste hours scrolling, complaining, comparing? How often do we waste hours scrolling, complaining, comparing, worrying, and obsessing over things that may never happen, while completely ignoring the gift of today? Many people live as though tomorrow is guaranteed, but tomorrow is a promise that none of us have been given. The truth is, there are people who went to sleep last night expecting to wake up this morning and never did. There are people who woke up expecting an ordinary day and received life-changing news before sunset. There are people who would give everything they own for one more conversation, one more hug, one more opportunity, one more sunrise. Yet here we are, living in moments that others would treasure, while treating them as ordinary. The greatest tragedy is not having too little. The greatest tragedy is failing to recognize how much you already have. Comparison has become one of the most dangerous habits in modern life. We compare our income, we compare our appearance, we compare our relationships, we compare our achievements, we compare our timelines, we compare our lives to carefully edited highlights from people we barely know. And the more we compare, the less grateful we become. Comparison is a thief. It steals joy. It steals peace. It steals contentment. It steals perspective. Most importantly, it steals your ability to see God's goodness in your own life. When Peter walked with Jesus, there was a moment when he became concerned about another person's journey. He wanted to know what would happen to someone else. Jesus essentially redirected his focus. In other words, stop worrying about another person's path and focus on following me. That message still applies today. God never asked you to compare your journey to someone else's. He asked you to trust him with yours. Someone else's blessing does not cancel yours. Someone else's breakthrough does not delay yours. Someone else's success does not diminish your value. What God has planned for you cannot be stolen by another person, but comparison will convince you otherwise. Comparison will make you feel behind when God says you're right where you need to be. Comparison will make you feel forgotten when God is still working. Comparison will make you feel poor while standing in abundance. That is why gratitude is so powerful. Gratitude shifts your focus from what is missing to what is present. Gratitude reminds you that God has been faithful even when life has been difficult. Think about all the prayers God has already answered. There was a time when you prayed for things you currently have. There was a time when you asked God for opportunities that now seem ordinary. There was a time when you prayed for the job you now complain about. There was a time when you prayed for the house you now overlook. There was a time when you prayed for the relationship you now take for granted. There was a time when you prayed for the life you're currently living. But after receiving the blessing, something happened. The excitement faded. The gratitude weakened. The blessing became familiar. And familiar things often become invisible. That's why gratitude must be practiced intentionally. Not because God needs your gratitude, because you need the perspective it creates. Gratitude protects your heart from entitlement. It reminds you that every good thing comes from God. Every breath, every opportunity, every relationship, every lesson, every victory, even every challenge that shaped you into who you are becoming. Sometimes we think God is blessing us only when life feels easy. But some of God's greatest blessings arrive disguised as difficulties. The setback that redirected your life, the closed door that protected you, the disappointment that prepared you, the delay that matured you, the struggle that strengthened your faith. Looking back, many people realize that what felt like God's absence was actually God's protection. What felt like rejection was actually redirection. What felt like punishment was preparation. God was working even when they couldn't see it. And He may be doing the same thing in your life right now. Maybe you're frustrated because your life doesn't look the way you expected. Maybe you're tired of waiting. Maybe you're tired of struggling. Maybe you're tired of praying for something that hasn't happened yet. But don't allow what you lack to blind you to what God has already given. Because if all you focus on is what you don't have, you'll miss the miracle of what you do have. The enemy wants your attention fixed on scarcity. God wants your attention fixed on His faithfulness. One creates anxiety, the other creates peace. One creates envy, the other creates joy. One creates bitterness, the other creates gratitude. And gratitude changes everything. Gratitude doesn't mean pretending life is perfect. It means recognizing that God is still good even when life isn't. It means understanding that your current struggles do not erase your current blessings. You can be grateful and still be growing. You can be grateful and still have goals. You can be grateful and still pray for more. The difference is that gratitude allows you to pursue the future without despising the present. That's a powerful way to live, because many people spend so much time chasing the next thing that they never enjoy the current thing. They spend their entire lives arriving somewhere they thought would make them happy, only to immediately start chasing something else. And the cycle never ends. More money, more success, more recognition, more possessions, more achievements. Yet contentment remains out of reach. Because contentment is not found in having everything. Contentment is found in appreciating what God has already provided. The happiest people are not always the people with the most. Often, they are the people who recognize the value of what they already have. So today, before you complain about your life, remember that someone is praying for it. Before you complain about your job, remember that someone is desperately searching for one. Before you complain about your health, remember that someone is fighting for theirs. Before you complain about your family, remember that someone is praying for the people you get to come home to. Before you complain about your opportunities, remember that someone would give anything for the chances sitting in front of you. You are living with blessings that have become invisible through familiarity. Open your eyes again. Look around. Look at your life through the lens of gratitude instead of comparison. Notice the prayers that have already been answered. Notice the doors that have already opened. Notice the protection you never saw. Notice the grace you didn't deserve. Notice the goodness of God that surrounds you every single day. Because the life you call ordinary may be the very miracle someone else is begging God to receive. And if this message spoke to your heart, don't leave without doing one thing. Right now, think of 3 blessings you've been overlooking. 3 things you've treated as ordinary. 3 gifts you've stopped appreciating. Then thank God for them. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Because gratitude grows when it is practiced. And the moment you start seeing your blessings again, you'll realize something powerful. You were never lacking as much as you thought. You were simply looking in the wrong direction. The enemy wanted you focused on what was missing. God wanted you focused on what was present. So choose gratitude, choose perspective, choose faith. And remember this truth whenever comparison tries to steal your joy. The life you're complaining about may be the exact life someone else is praying for. Don't waste what God has already placed in your hand.